could improve species in terms of the genetic, in terms of the environment. So today you will learn about three topics, which is on how to manage Broodstock and do selection to choose the right breeder for your breeding program. And the second one is the semi-artificial reproduction, or the for mass production, uh, farmers always adopt the artificial reproduction. And for the broadstock management, why I said that today's topic is very much related to our previous topic is due to the first suggestion for the broadstock management, which is the selection of fish with desirable hereditary quality. So this is uh, linked to our previous topic where to um, we have to improve um, the species so that they have the trait that we want, with desirable trait, which, for instance, um, species that have a rapid growth trait, species that is higher resistant to dissolved oxygen deficiency or to the adverse water quality, species that have strong appetite, and so on. So with this quality, uh, uh, in the trait that we want, so this species can be chosen to be selected for the breeding program. And the second one is we need to choose fish with well-developed sexual organ. So fish that have well-developed sexual organ, actually you can determine based on the age of the fish. So how to determine age of the fish? There are There are a few methods on how to determine age of the fish. For instance, you can determine based on the length. So you need to find the relationship between length and age so that you can decide whether at this stage, with that age, they have um ready sexual organ to be chosen as a breeder for breeding program. And another thing is people always use scale, okay, scale, CSAT, of the fish to determine age of the fish as well. And the last one is how you raise a culture system that you use to raise the fish so that you could produce healthy potential spawners that have dormant egg well developed in the females. Okay, so these are a list of the selection criteria. For example, the cup breeders. So we select based on the shape of the fish body, the scale distribution, state of the health, and also development of sexual organ. So if you have if you need to select the breeders, so you need to make sure that the fish is in good health condition, that have no body wound, no parasite detected, and also have a typical scale distribution. So CICID dia, how is it distributed, no fin or body deformation, and also we need to check that the fish is not too fat or too thin so that it can possess required shape that we want, and optimum proportion. Because this is very important because it relate with the potential of the species to produce egg and breed. Okay, so first of all, you need to determine or differentiate male and female breeders. So this is can be done easily, but with experience. Okay, you need experience to easily differentiate between male and female. So basically, what you need characteristic that you need to observe is first shape of the body and also the relative position of the genital papilla. So, in if you want to differentiate between female and male, in terms of the body shape of the body, so female have quite a plump body compared to male that have slender that is a bit slender. And in terms of the genital papilla, female genital papilla situated above the genital opening situated above the genital papilla. And then for the male, the genital opening is found behind the genital papilla. So if you look at this picture, you can see the differences between female and male papilla. So normally what people do is to put stain. You can use food stain that you stain at the genital papilla area so that you can see clearly shape um, of this part to determine whether the genital opening and location of the genital opening. So I will provide one video on this so that you can imagine how people differentiate between male and female fish. Okay, so if you want to determine whether the fish that you choose is really at the maturity stage, you need to observe the external sign of maturity. So so if you want to check a cup breeder whether it reached maturity and could be selected for artificial propagation, so what you need to do is to check the belly and also genital papilla. So if so a mature female has a well-rounded and soft or semi-soft belly, and then for the genital papilla, it is erected and reddish. Its anal opening is enlarged and protruding. So for the male, a mature male, he will release milk under a slight abdominal pressure, um, and that is the characteristic of the male. And also the system that you use to raise up the species. So you need to make sure that the water inlet, outlet of the pond is functioning okay. Access to the facilities is okay with the good protection surrounding, as well as the stocking rates to 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 avoid cannibalism and etc. The last one is in terms of the feed given to the breeders. So different maturity stage, they are given different type of fish, different composition of because they require different composition of nutrition. So you need to differentiate between feed given to the breeders um, that form new eggs, which develop towards the dormant stage, with this fish that is already at the uh, dormant egg have been developed, awaiting for spawning process. So, if you are a skilled workers, so skilled workers they have skills to select breeders manually, and they can like during selection they can divide the fish according to their stage, whether immature um, or health state of the fish, whether it is unhealthy or they are invalid fish. So if for for immature breeder, they will be put back to the storage pond, and for the unhealthy or invalid fish, they are sent to the market. And this selection process is very important for the females, whose maturity should be thoroughly checked, so that we can ensure the success of the artificial propagation. And you have to make sure as well during the process of selection, uh, enough oxygen is supplied to the fish to avoid mortality of the fish. So these are type of the netting that's usually used to catch the breeders. So the net should be open at both ends. So the siphon mouth opening measuring about around 30 centimeters in diameters, and the netting should be about 1 meter long. So what a breeder do is to catch the breeder at one side, and they close the other end, and then when they want to release the fish, they just open um, the other end and release the fish just like that. So it will reduce stress um, that they put during catching the breeders. So this is the transport that people always use to transport the broodstock. The first one is double hammock, and most of the time this I think this is more favorite transportation tools they use to transport the broodstock, which is the fiber tank. Sometimes they fit it into the vehicle, and it is supplied with the oxygen, and sometimes they control the temperature as well. Um, Aside from that, the broodstock facility should meet the requirement for top quality of broodstock growing environment, complete with the biosecurity, um, because you have very precious species kept in that facilities, need to be accessed easily, need to be monitored and control the facilities. Okay, so for the artificial reproduction, um, so these are the things that we will come across: broodstock care and selection of breeders, how you do the hormone injection, maturation process, and how to strip out the eggs, um, followed by the incubation of fertilized egg. Okay, the first one you may want to do to induce propagation without using hormone treatment. So a mature breeders can be reproduced artificially by simulating the event whereby they put together male and female during raining season to trigger off the mating and spawning process. So this is natural mating of male and female, and normally carried out in a pond with correct density. So normally the ratio between male and female, they put 6 mature female with 4 mature male. And then just a few hours later, the water level is rise up to certain level, and spawning will occur at night. And the following morning, the breeders can be removed. So this is the uh, term artificial reproduction, since some offspring are produced. However, um, result from this method without hormone injection, the number of fingerling is low compared to uh, the artificial reproduction. um, and this technique of inducing propagation with hormone treatment is called the semi-natural reproduction. So for this purpose, they use another method is for the semi-artificial reproduction, but this time they use hormone treatment. So type of hormone that generally being used is DOCA, and they have like certain dosage um, given to the fish. So they have DOCA and also HCG, human chorionic gonadotrophin. Um, they have the pituitary gland material. For instance, in the African catfish, they collected pituitaries from the male, and then they inject that suspension to the female catfish. Okay, so there are 3 techniques of semi-artificial reproduction that has been developed, where hormone-induced reproduction in concrete tank with a gravel substrate, or they could use also ponds or in a HAPA system placed in the pond. So for um, hormone that is induced in the using pond facilities, the mature female are injected with hormone in order to provoke mating and spawning process, and then it will be placed in a completely filled pond at correct density, which is 2 males and 1 male. So the spawning usually takes place during night after the hormone treatment, and the breeders then will be removed in the following morning. So this because this process is carried out in a pond, so the survivability in the nursery pond is one of the limitation due to the cannibalism. So um, normally less amount of fingerling is produced from this system. The second one is hormone-induced reproduction using HAPA, the system placed in a pond. So Similarly, a mature female is injected with hormone to provoke ovulation, mating, and then spawning process. So after injection, uh, female and male will be put together, and spawning usually take place at night, and the breeder then removed in the following morning. But then one advantage of this method is that eggs are concentrated within the Harper system, and they eventually can be treated against fungal infection, and due to that the hatchling, the number of the uh, um, number of the fingerling is higher compared to the previous method. And normally they cover the hyphenating so that to avoid um predator to comes in and to avoid the breeders to go out. So this is example of hyphenating system that people use placed in the pond. And the last one is induced reproduction carried out in a concrete tank with a gravel substrate. So this was one of the first technique developed for the hormone induced production in C. gariepinus in Africa. So similarly, mature females are injected in the afternoon with hormonal materials. So either they use DOCA, CG, pituitaries, as I explained before, and then placed together with a male in a concrete tank. For this system, they add on the substrate with a layer of stony gravel that function as a substrate for the release egg. Similarly, the breeder usually spawn at night after the hormonal material is injected in the afternoon, and the released fertilized eggs will stick to the gravel or to any substrate that were provided. And if they did not um, add any substrate, so the eggs will be settled down at the bottom of the tank. So in the following morning, the breeder are then removed from the tank. The fertilized egg remain in the tank, and hatching will take place after 24 hours. And after 3 to 4 days, larvae could be collected from the tank. However, the disadvantages of this method are that broodfish often injured um, each other, which sometimes may result in the death of one of the breeder. And then the number of the larvae obtained is relatively small, as the evolution is often only partial, and the quantity of eggs released usually being only about 5 to 10% of the total body weight, compared to about 15 to 20% if you use fully artificial um, method. Okay, now we comes to the last part of this lecture, the artificial reproduction. Um, so the previous method, the semi-natural, or when you use hormone um, to induce reproduction, either you use any system, pond system, hopper system, or concrete tanks with substrate. Normally, it's resulted in lower number of fingerlings produced from this method. And due to that, for a massive or mass production, requires application of artificial reproduction method. So artificial propagation technique um, is a more controlled condition, and you need to strip out the eggs. You need to collect the sperm and then put them together for the fertilization process and development of the eggs. So, artificial reproduction by induced breeding through hormone treatment, followed by artificial fertilization and incubation of the fertilized egg and the subsequent rearing of the larvae to the finger to reach the fingerling size, um, and using this process they have uh, many advantages, including higher rates of fertilized and hatching eggs. It could protect against enemies and unfavorable environmental condition. You could observe better condition for growth and also survivability of the fingerling. Okay, so first, what you need to do is to select females from this broodstock ponds, and transfer it to a holding tank um, within a facility. So, ideally, broodfish should weigh between 300 to 800 gram, because if you have larger size than that, then the fish will be more difficult to handle and often resulting in substantial egg loss during the stripping process. So in general, mature female are selected based on this criteria, where it should be a well distended. They should have swollen abdomen, from which rib eggs can be obtained by just slightly pressing the abdomen toward the genital papilla. So, rib eggs, you could see them general uniform in size, and if you are an experienced hatchery operator, you could see the nucleus a small dark point in the center of the eggs. For the male broodstock, there is only one criteria, where they should be larger than 200 gram and not less than 7 months old. So we can say that the female are rapes if eggs, uh, the strap eggs, are more or less uniform in size. So these are the characteristic of the rape female. So if you use hormone injection, um, it's require, you have to determine the quantity of powdered acetone dried pituitary material, or required number of whole pituitaries are pulverized in a porcelain mortar. You have to mix it with required quantities of physiological salt solution, and then you suck the suspension using a syringe, and inject it to the female fish. So the most common method of administering the hormone solution is by intramuscular injection into the dorsal muscle. So I will provide one video on this, on how you prepare um, the pituitary hormone from uh, how you prepare hormone from pituitary gland material that you use a African catfish, and how you inject it on the dorsal muscle. So normally you need to calm down the fish by covering up the head of the breeder. So you need to use a wet towel So this method could keep it quiet during injection process. Um, you have to know that in general, most fish keep still if their eyes are covered. Okay, so one more thing that you need to know is how to speed up the process of um, spawning. So it is temperature dependent. So the higher the temperature, the quicker the eggs will be ovulated. So the relationship between water temperature and the time taken for the eggs to ovulate can be um, viewed in the table 1. So these are the table 1. So you could see that increase temperature will increase um, sorry will decrease time taken between injection and also stripping. So this is how you stripping eggs from a female African catfish. I will provide a video so that you can imagine how you do this process. And this is the process of collecting milk from male African catfish. For the case of male African catfish, you the only way to collect milk is by sacrificing the fish. You need to cut out the abdomen of the fish so that you could see um, milk and you can get sperm out from the milk. So the sperm will be added to the stripped eggs and the eggs will be fertilized by adding an equal volume of clean water. And then you have to mix them gently. Usually they will put the container um, on a shaker, and eggs must be stirred continuously until they are placed in the hatching tanks. As the eggs become sticky and without stirring process, will stick together to clump together. Okay, about 60 seconds after fertilization has taken place, the sperm has lost its activity. The fertilized eggs are then ready for incubation in tanks or hapas. So, development process from fertilized eggs until the hatching process, they are all dependent on the water temperature. So, the higher the water temperature, the faster the eggs will be hatched. So, that's all for our topic today. So, if you have any question, you can drop your question in the e-campus, okay, and we can discuss. I will open a forum so that you can drop question there, and we can have a discussion in the forum. Okay. So together with this, I will provide you a few videos that you can watch for you to imagine this process um, that I mentioned in this lecture. As well as I will, aside from that, I will put also one activity, simple activity that you need to complete. So hopefully from there you can have further understanding on the topic that we discussed today. So that's all from me. Thank you.